All right, welcome back to another episode of the Live Your Dreams podcast. I'm your host, Joe Gawalis, where we dive deep into the stories of inspiring individuals who are making the dreams and the world change. Today, we have on the incredibly talented Bill Teck, a director and producer whose latest project, Stevie Van Zandt Disciple, premiered at the prestigious Tribeca Film Festival. This highly anticipated documentary takes an intimate look at the life and legacy of the legendary musician Stevie Van Zandt, and he is much more than that, a true Renaissance man. I am telling you, fans, you are going to be very excited. This Saturday, it is going to be able for all of you to be checking it out on HBO Max. It's going to be streaming. It is an incredible documentary. I'm telling you, Bill, you are incredible. Thank you so much for coming on to the show. This is your creation. We are humbled to have you on. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hey, Joe, Chris, thank you for having me on. Live your dreams. That's kind of what we've been doing with this movie. I just appreciate y'all having me on.
No, are you kidding me? And what I love about what you created here and what Stevie Van Zandt represents is somebody living their dreams. I mean, Bill, you've been involved with a lot of great projects, and now you're undertaking this monumental story because, Stevie's a renegade. He was with the E Street Band. He stepped away. He came back. He's like a true Renaissance man in the sense where he's an actor, a creator, a producer. He has a radio station. I mean, he can do it all. And now you're given the honor of undertaking, producing, directing this incredible story. How did that start for you at the beginning of the journey? Because that's where it all starts, right? At the beginning. How did you start undertaking this?
It's funny, when it comes to Live Your Dreams, I think it's kind of appropriate because this has been a dream. The last project was a dream. I think if you have a passion for something and you're interested in telling that story and you're diligent about it, you don't quit, and you just stick with it, you really can get people to trust you, and you can kind of get it done. There was a writer in my community in Miami named John Marlowe, and he would write about film and about music in the Miami News. And he'd say, Peter Bogdanovich is the most important American director, and I'm an impressionable 13-year-old kid. I believe it. He said, Stevie Van Zandt, the most important artist in music. You got to get his records. I'd ride my bike to the record store to go buy the records. And I followed these guys' careers. So the last doc was about Peter, and that went to Venice and did very well. But it took me 20 years. It took me 20 years to convince Peter to let me make the film. And so I'm still trying to do things that I dreamed of doing when I was 13. And it takes a lot. I first approached Stephen Van Zandt in 2006, then again in 2010, and again in 2014. And just trying to break him down and be like, man, nobody can tell this better than me. Please allow me to do this. Because I think people don't know that Silvio Dante helped free Nelson Mandela and then South Africa.
Wow.
Like you said, he had the first streaming show, on streaming, that he had the first branded satellite radio station. So I thought this is one of those cool docs where the guy, but you don't know the whole story.
Yeah, pioneer. It's so well put, because you're right. You know the guy, but people really don't know everything he's been involved with. He's a revolutionary, like you said. Again, Nelson Mandela, what he did with Lilyhammer on Netflix, and again with the Stevie Van Zandt radio, everything he's doing is incredible. Now, you first approached him in 2006. How did that conversation go? Because again, everything starts at the beginning, right?
It does, man. And I started out, I've been a producer for a while, working in documentaries, yes, but moonlighting and advertising and stuff. And we were trying to license T-shirts for Outlaw Country. My boss at the time loved Outlaw Country, and Outlaw Country is one of the stations that Stevie runs. Yep. And the gentleman who ran it for him, Jeremy Tepper, just passed away very unexpectedly over the weekend, and it's so sad.
I hear that.
Terrible. And we just saw him at the premiere a week ago, so it's so sad. But I wrote to Outlaw Country, and I said, "Wow, Stephen Van Zandt runs this? How?" And I've been trying to make a doc about this guy forever. And I wrote to him, "Thank you. We're aware of you. We'll get back to you." Somehow or another, a mutual buddy of mine is one of the lobbyists for the Hard Rock casinos.
Okay, sure.
And he mentioned the guy that runs the Hard Rock is a longtime Stevie fan. Used to see him in Asbury Park. And I said, well, is he friendly with Steve? Yeah, well, let's write to him. And again, word got back. We're aware of you. We'll get back to you. Thank you. And I just kept trying, man. I just kept trying. Finally, he acquiesced and met me for a glass of wine. And then I just, somehow convinced them.
I love that. And thank you so much for telling that story because, especially young filmmakers and young documentarians that are coming up, they have to realize it is not an easy path. You have to keep going. And like you said, follow your dreams. You have to be persuasive. You have to keep pursuing it. It's amazing you were able to share that because I'm sure our young listeners are really going to be motivated by hearing this doesn't just happen overnight. It's a process. And if you give up, it quickly dissipates. I mean, you need to keep pursuing it. It says a lot about you, Bill.
It reminds me of that phrase, persistence is key. You're the prime example of persistence is key.
It's everything. It's literally everything. And even making the film, we wrapped principal photography, and then there was the pandemic came, and we're like, whoa. Yeah. And then just one thing after another. I mean, we've been cutting this movie for a long time, but persistence is key. We wound up with this great team at HBO Docs that really believed in the way we wanted to tell the story. And again, to get there, how do you get to HBO Docs? Yeah. It's like the best place you can make documentaries. Yeah, well, sure. Super freaking hard. So you just gotta put your nose to the grindstone, just keep plowing along.
No. You're absolutely right. And Bill, being a documentary filmmaker is such a, being a filmmaker in general is a very unique niche in the world. And now you're a niche within a niche, right? That's a very, very specified style of filmmaking. And you mentioned Peter Bogdanovich as a young man, and you heard about little Stevie. What motivated you? I'm interested in your story, Bill, to become and go down this path because you are really great at what you do. You have a lot of great documentaries out there. You're seasoned in the business. What started a young Bill down this journey in life?
Well, thank you, man. Thank you for saying that. I didn't have a choice. In my house, some people, parents are fishermen or their parents are sports fans. Or their parents, my parents just loved the movies. There was nothing more important than the movies. We went to the movies. We didn't even have a TV. We would just go to the movies like 5 times a week. Sometimes, it was bananas how much my family went to the movies. And so that was just what the topic of discussion was at dinner. And for some reason, I feel like the things that are important to your folks, quite often subconsciously you pursue it.
Yeah.
Like I wasn't aware that I was doing it for that reason. But the more I make these docs, with Peter, for example, his family would take him to the silent movies at the MoMA, and art was the most important thing in the world. His dad was a painter. He'd paint till the light was gone, then he'd play the piano. And they grew up in a house where there wasn't a lot of money, but there was a lot of emphasis on like the arts are important. So he kind of didn't have a choice. Stevie saw the Beatles, drank the Kool-Aid, and rock and roll is the most important thing in the world for him. He really didn't have a choice. It was going to be a musician one way or another, whether it was a big rock star, famous musician, or a working musician. I don't think he had a choice. And I think for me, it was that in my family, that's what was stressed. It wasn't like, go be an attorney. It was, do whatever makes you happy, and so that made me happy. I probably
I love that.
But looking back, I probably could have gone to law school and done this on the side, but it's too late now.
It's always funny, right? The road not traveled, we never know, right? And people know being an artist, for those of the listeners that aren't, it is a difficult path. It's something that's very unique, and every artist has an up and down. And I'm sure people see, even people like Stevie Van Zandt, who is such an established name. People have these ups and down struggles. It's all not just like roses and rainbows and everything is great. When you choose this path or any path in life, but particularly the arts, you are going to go through these ups and downs and these waves. Look at little Stevie's career. You did a great job at covering this where he was such an influential figure and then kind of for a little while kind of left that public eye and all of a sudden he's back, but in a different capacity. And to a whole new generation, he becomes Silvio Dante, right? And now all of a sudden he's this like, it's incredible how he kind of took this world and now he's stepped into it in that direction.
He was telling me, he said, what I took, he said to me, I hope and he really let me make my own film. He would, a lot of these stars make the movie and they're hovering over the guy. He really let me make my own movie, didn't have his foot on my throat. Nice. He goes, oh yeah, it was a gift. He goes, I want you to explain my crazy life to me. You explain it. And when he saw the movie, and I think he got that from writing his book, which he wrote after we'd started production on the film. Okay. He goes, when I left the E Street Band, I thought my life was over. I produced this record that had 7 top 10 singles, tied at the time for the the all-time record at the
Yeah.
time. And I'm not in the band. I'm off in Africa trying to end apartheid and help Mandela, and I missed all that. He goes, I thought my life was over. And he goes, if there's something to take from the movie, it's that maybe if your first dream dies, keep going. Don't give in to despair, because just keep going, because there's something. He's like, everything I achieved after my first dream died. Everything from Africa to acting to like business and entrepreneurship, and it all happened pretty late in life.
Yeah.
And so he's like, don't give up, man. Don't give in to despair, because you never know what's around the corner.
You're so right, and that's such an inspiring story to see that. And it's I love that this story is out there being told, because these are the stories that need to be told. And again, look, I think it's great if you have a path that goes from point A to point B and you can get there and there's no no hiccups. Good for you, bless you, and I hope anybody can go through that. But generally, that does not happen in life, especially in the path that we all kind of took. So it's great that Stevie's story is getting out there like this, and the way you tell it, you take somebody who's this bigger than life figure, and you still keep him in that, you still see that he accomplished these things, but you bring him to a place where everybody can relate to him. Your storytelling in the documentary was so well done, Bill, that you really made him, that you can feel him as a person, where you don't keep, you still know his status, but you don't, as a viewer, you now can say, I can relate to him. You did a great job really telling the story in that way.
Thank you, man. Thank you. It's funny for a guy that, is dresses as outrageously as Stevie is, and has this life. He's flying around on a fancy rock star airplane. He's he's just a mensch. I ran into somebody who was like, I saw him at a restaurant, and I was like, I don't want to bother you while you're eating, but can I get you a picture after? And he was like, why don't you just sit down and have a slice of pizza with me? Busy, and he's in his own head, but the guy's a mensch, and that's, so it's nice. I was lucky that I picked, two nice human beings to make documentaries about.
Let me tell you something. Yeah. The one thing I got to say, the through line between Stevie's story, your story, even our story, is this phrase I heard years ago. The journey is the destination. So we arrive every day. We're pursuing our dreams, whether there's the goal at the end or not, or then it takes you a different direction. You're arriving every day. You're doing what you love. You're living your dreams.
Chris, I love to hear you say that, because that's how I feel. People are like, you're done with the movie? Are you so happy? And I'm like, no, I'm the same as I am every day. A journey. And so it might be out, but we're still on the path. Every day you're on the path.
Yeah. So, talking about the journey, right? So, Bill, you said it before. You have to go through a lot when you make a documentary, right? Again, making just a narrative feature takes a very long time. Documentaries can take years and years, and now you have all that footage. You're going into post, and now that could take a massive amount of time. And plus, you ran into the pandemic. How did you, as a filmmaker, as a person who's spearheading this whole production, go through those ups and downs? And how did you handle it? Because one, it's very difficult to be a director and a producer, and two, to have to go through that pandemic time where you think it could all be taken for you. I mean, bless you, man. Your mental fortitude must be huge, because to get through that, it says a lot.
Oh, you're very kind. Like all of us, man. Life. You're. I think I heard Bruce Springsteen say this one day. You have your plans, and you move towards what you think the goal is, and you know that the crushing hand of fate is just waiting, just waiting for an appearance. At the same time that I was that the pandemic hit, I got custody of my son, and I was raising my son, and it was just absolute. One of our producers, his dad got very, very ill. He had to care for his father. Another producer, on the film, Rob Cottle, had his own challenges with his life. We all, I think in life, everybody got cursed during the pandemic. Everybody did.
Yeah.
My production company, that was a disaster, as all of us suffered in business. And you were lucky if it was just business. So many people lost their lives and never really recovered. And anyway, you just kind of try to keep moving and keep focused on the goal and take it one day at a time. And, every day, just an inch more, just keep going. And that's kind of how we did it, just 1 inch at a time.
It's so good you said that, because that is production 1 inch at a time. You're going to get a hiccup at every other single step, and that's fantastic. Every time, every little step you take, there's going to be something knock you back. So well put, inch at a time. I couldn't say it better. I think that was a great way to put what production really is.
it's so, you know how it is. It's so trying, and you think you're, and then the you know, this was a difficult story to tell because we had to interweave so many different facets. His love story with his wife, his passion for rock and roll and keeping rock and roll alive, his friendship with Springsteen, and that being a very meaningful relationship in his life. And when they were kind of weren't performing together all those years, when that was separated, then later his embracing of all these new disciplines, acting and entrepreneurship and you know, his charitable work. There's a lot of different, his activism, you know, which was not only South Africa, but Native Americans and so many different things he was involved with. So it's a lot of different threads to weave, and that can be challenging.
I'm sure it is. I mean, I can imagine even having a 20-minute conversation with Stevie Van Zandt must be fascinating. The time you got to spend around him, it must have been incredible with a man whose mind works like this, who's so caring and passionate, but yet so skilled and understands what he's doing and making a difference. That must have been quite for yourself as a person, as a filmmaker, must have been an amazing experience being around him.
I saw a guy that just doesn't compromise. I mean, he just does not compromise. I mean, we had it was fascinating to watch. And coming off this thing that I had just done about Peter, another guy who didn't compromise and really stuck to his guns no matter what. This is two dudes that don't care. And I'm ready to be like, what do you want? I'll paint it. What do you want? Whatever you going, I'll do it. And so I learned, like, oh, I guess if you want to make good stuff, you really got to stick to your guns. And so, you know, I'm trying to learn a few lessons here and there.
No. You're absolutely right. And, you know, it always, what I love in the message you kind of put apart. Stephen Van Zandt became successful, and that's great. But I think regardless of the success, Stephen Van Zandt would have done what Stephen Van Zandt did, regardless of the monetary success. He would have taken the same path.
And it's funny. You see people say it in the movie, like, you know, Jimmy Iovine's in the movie who created Beat headphones. He's like, Jimmy's got to be a billionaire, maybe a millionaire for sure. I mean, right? Yeah. And he's like, hey, you got to stick to what your passion is. If you're not following your conviction, what are you following? You know? Yeah. And I'm like, wow. So the movie does have those little nuggets here and there that are like, you know, stick to what you feel.
No,
I mean,
you're absolutely right.
Say, right? But then you got to put food on the table for your family, so there's got to be a balance. It's tricky.
No. Well,
but I think
I'm sorry,
it's done with integrity. No, it can be done if it's done with integrity. I think it can be done.
What a great word, integrity. You're absolutely right. And Stevie is a man of integrity. Now, yourself as a filmmaker, talking about integrity, when you're telling a story like this, somebody's life journey, you do have to have integrity, but you also have to have a sense of truth, right? So as a filmmaker, it must be a very unique position you find yourself in when you're dealing with Stevie and his people. You want to tell them, not that Stevie's a great man, so there's not many negatives around him, but how do you bridge that line of saying, okay, I want to tell a truthful story, but at the same time, I always want to make the person look in the best light at all times. And there really isn't many problems with him, but taking the responsibility of telling somebody's story must be a huge overtaking on the filmmaker, like yourself. You know, how do you feel about taking that kind of responsibility?
You know, I was excited about telling a story, kind of warts and all, you know, and I was ready to do that. And I think we're so used to those kinds of things. So when we introduce certain characters in the movie, and you see like Zoe, who winds up being a lifelong friend and assistant, but she's like, oh, I started a police station at 19, and you're like, oh, this is going to take a weird turn.
Yeah,
but no,
yeah.
It was lucky for me because I had told him, if I'm going to do this, it's no holds barred. You let me do it, fine. Yeah. But I got to tell the story. We're not going to do some little quick 90-minute thing like your record label would make. It's a real movie. Yeah. But luckily for me, because the guy never takes the cape off. He wakes up in the morning. Most important thing in the world is rock and roll, and we got to save it. Not just because he plays rock and roll, but he thinks it's a great. And I kind of came to this belief myself. It's influential. It's a great tool for freedom, whatever kind of personal freedom you need, and for justice in a way that it frees you up to really. I don't know. It's a great tool for communication. His wife feels that way. She grew up at the Cafe Wah, seeing Jimi Hendrix. Oh, wow. And these guys, they're like the real Tommy and Pamela Lee. They're like the real.
That's great.
They just drank the Kool-Aid. Rock and roll is the most important thing in the world. We live this 24/7, and you go to their house, you spend time with them. You're like, this is really the real deal. So it was cool to be around that and document it.
Yeah, sure. You know, that sounds. I think it's awesome because I've thought The Sopranos was a great series, but I love that he got his wife to be a recurring character that became, a big deal in the series. And it shows the kind of person he is to get her involved, that actually played his wife on the show. It's cool seeing that when you know the behind the scenes and you see them together. And she was a great actress. I thought it was great seeing those two on screen together. It was a very cool dynamic. She played a friend of Carmela and obviously Silvio's wife, and it was fantastic. She did a great job.
Maureen is a force of nature. She is a force of nature. She used to know, I think, Tony Sirico from back in the day. And,
oh, sure. Yeah. Yep.
A real cool character. And also a very fine actor. She had her own theater company with Vincent Pastore, who's in the theater company.
Yeah.
They call it Rent. So they're a trip.
That whole group of people from The Sopranos always seemed very, very tight. It's a tight-knit catch. And again, they had their anniversary at Tribeca this year, which is also a fantastic screening. And how did you feel? Because as a documentarian, now you're out there, you're directing, you're working with so many great people, but you're working now with, people in the music world, entrepreneurs in tech. Everybody Stevie touched throughout his life. You're talking to David Chase and other character actors from The Sopranos. How was that to do that experience? You're touching all walks of life that little Stevie touched himself.
It's a dream. I mean, it's literally, I was in a dream. I remember sitting in my house on Sunday night watching Sopranos, and I'm a Stevie fan. I've been following him my whole life. So separate from my career as a documentarian, which I've been doing for years, but I'm looking every in the early days of the internet in the 90s. Stevie's nowhere. You just can't find any information on it. And all of a sudden, I'm watching TV and I'm like, is that Steve Van Zandt? That looks like Steve Van Zandt.
Yeah.
And then you're hearing songs like when Gloria Trillo was dancing for Tony.
Yeah. Yep.
That song Affection, I'm like, that sounds like Stevie. But then I look at it says The Lost Boys. Again, another alien. Because he's so mysterious with the music, People don't know how many records he's secretly created. The guy is just, and to then be interviewing David Chase. One day I get a call. I didn't give David Chase my number. Hello, Billy, it's David Chase. I'm like, hello, Mr. Chase. How are you?
Yeah.
Interview Stevie's brother and sister for the movie, and I'm like, no, it's mostly about the work, but I do plan to. He's like, you got to have the brother and sister. If you don't have the brother and sister, the movie's going to be stupid. He didn't quite say it that way.
That's right.
People are going to wonder, like, does this guy have a family at all? I'm like, no, I'm going to get to it. I just haven't gotten to it. And of course, Stevie's brother Billy, showrunner, used to be the showrunner on Martin, created Anything But Love with Jamie Lee Curtis, Richard Lewis. His sister's very accomplished as a journalist, and that has her own life. And of course, I plan to talk to them. But when you get a call from David Chase, you go, holy cow, I better do this quick.
Yeah.
It's one of the coolest parts of the movie.
No, that's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. And, you mentioned, if you don't mind me saying, you mentioned family. You have, you talked about your son. How does he feel seeing his father do something so cool? I mean, that must be the most amazing thing for him to see. You know what? Dad has created something. He's in this unique world that you see on television, but he's actually the one creating these things. That must be a really cool experience for that young man.
Literally a dream come true for me, because you dream of that stuff. And when I got him, it was a crazy time, and I had to bring him with me to the shoots. So I'm like, all right, I'm flying out. I can't put him in school. I got nobody to pick him up at school. Blah blah blah. Let's go. So he came with me to film Jeff Barry and Chris Columbus, and And I'm like, you're going to be the production assistant. Get that wire, put that over there, grab that microphone. And then we're 5 years later, post-pandemic, but he's all grown up. He's in college. He's got a girlfriend. And he's sitting there next to me at the film. And I'm just kind of elbowing him in the scenes that we shot together. And it's like, talk about a dream. It was a dream.
It must have felt really great. I'm so happy you had that experience, because you mentioned, for you, family, you grew up around movies. And now your son's getting to experience that same thing. That must just be what a feeling.
That did not occur to me until you just said that right now. That's very moving. Thank you. I realize that, because I lost my family early. So that by the time I was like 30, they'd passed on. So now I'm 56. So to get to share that with him was super meaningful. Thank you. I didn't even realize the connection.
I'm sure you did subconsciously, It was, thank you, because that's such a beautiful moment, and I'm sure that comes full circle like that. Really must have been something so special, especially in New York, Tribeca together. I mean, what a world, right? And to have that happen, those moments so that you can't even think about creating it. It just happens and it falls into place like that. You're really, Bill, what a blessing that must have been for you. It's really fantastic.
Indeed, it was, because he's older now. I used to throw him in a limo with Peter back in the 2016, around then when we were finishing that film up, and but he was still young. Now he really could absorb.
No, growing up, that's what happens, right? All of a sudden you blink and that's it. Now, 10 years from now, he's making documentaries. So let's hope that's
well, it. Hopefully these AI robots like documentaries.
I know, man, going crazy. Well, talking about that, Bill, I'm not going to talk about what you think of AI, but I'm very excited because you have had a career that's kept going and going and going. You've done successful documentaries. You're great at what you do and in your craft. You're respected in the field. What is going on next? Because again, 22nd, it's coming out. The World Can View Disciple. It's going to be something people love. But is there anything on the horizon right now, or Bill, any ideas that you're getting brewing, or are you discussing anything that you may be able to share with us?
Oh, I fell in love with making films about music because this has really been a cool process. And Rob Cotto, one of the producers, and I really worked on the music together, and he really helped me get all this music in place because it's a lot of cool music in this movie. There's like over 100 music cues.
Sure.
I think I'd like to do something relating to music again, if possible, and then maybe even a narrative, which is how I started. But narrative is very challenging. It takes so you move into documentaries. So we'll see what's next. I don't. Right now, I'm still I still feel like I should be wearing the bandana.
You're like in little Stevie zones.
Who's to say you can't? They making movies, musicals out of movies. You can make a musical out of a documentary. Maybe you'll be a pioneer in that industry.
Yeah, that would be kind of cool. You have to help me with that if we do it, because it's a cool
break
idea.
out the song, yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, Bill, you are somebody who is, one, not only inspiring in what you create, but you as a human being is just somebody who's incredible to talk to. You can tell you're passionate about what you talk about, but you're caring about other individuals. It's the way you undertook this story. You talked about Stevie as a human, the way you talk about your son, your family, your past, how things kind of intertwined together. I'm just happy to have got to meet Bill, the human being, because really it feels like you're just an incredible individual.
Thank you, Joe. It's an honor to be on your show. I think what you guys do is important. It's a challenging world out there, and it chips away at you. And I think it's important to tell people, no, man, keep moving forward. Keep moving forward towards your dreams, because that it contains, what's that quote from Goethe? Boldness contains magic, and it helps when you go for what you want. The world kind of conspires a little bit to help you along. So a little. Sometimes it slams doors. Sometimes there's a little crack, and you get through it and push it little by little. So I think what you all are doing is really important.
No. Thank you so much. It is absolutely appreciated. And for our fans that are watching and listening, where can people learn more about you? And you mentioned your documentary about Peter Bogdanovich. Where can they see that? Where can they learn more about you? Are there places that people can kind of learn more about Bill and see your work?
Oh, thank you. Well, you can see the Peter doc. I think it's on Peacock now.
Okay.
It's called One Day Yesterday, Peter Bogdanovich and the Lost American Film. It's got Jeff Bridges, Tarantino, Frank Marshall, and Sybil. Obviously, got to have Sybil in it. The beautiful Louise Stratton. Anyway, and then my work you can see at BillTeck.com, which is my name, BILLTK.com, and you can see all the things I did in the magazine business as well for years. You can just see all the stuff I've been working on.
No, I think that's fantastic. Bill, really, you are a fantastic individual. Anything you ever want to promote, we hope that we should definitely do this again. We had a lot of fun with you on here. You're definitely a dynamic guy. You're an interesting person. I think people are going to learn so much from you. And I have to say thank you for taking this story, because for somebody who loved what little Stevie did for me, it was a pleasure getting to see what you created. It was great. And more and more, I'm so blessed, to really have talked to you. You're a fantastic individual. Yes. Really, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for sharing. Yes.
Honestly, Joe and Chris, what you guys do is beautiful, and I'm honored to be on. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. And again, always, for the Live Your Dreams podcast, my name is Joe Gawalis.
Chris Victor.
Bill Teck, you are fantastic. What we're doing again, June 22nd. Everybody check it out. Stevie Van Zandt, Disciple on HBO. You're looking at the director, the producer, and a fantastic human being. We will see everybody next week. Thank you all so much for tuning in. And again, live your dreams, live them passionately, because life is worth living with a passion. Thank you all so very much.